Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 4th of July edition of our Rankin County Board of Supervisors meeting. We'll get the ball rolling, and we usually start with an invocation. I've asked Ms. Laura Oster, our County Administrator, to get started. Please, ma'am.
Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this day that you've given to us and for the blessings of this day. We ask that you would be with us now as we enter into this meeting, that you would give us wisdom and discernment. And Lord, we just thank you for this country that we live in, for what we're going to celebrate, for the independence, the freedom that we have, but we know that our freedom comes through Jesus Christ, our Savior. We just again thank you. We pray for those that are sick and need the healing on this day, and for those families that have been touched by any tragedy. We just ask that you take us now to this meeting, open our hearts to hear what you would have to say to us, that we would make good and wise decisions. So it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, ma'am. We're going to start off on the public comments, and we're glad to have Judge Brim and his merry bandit of whoever coming joining us this morning. Few of us are able to make Reunification Day Friday at the youth court out there in Pelahatchie, and it was nice to see the families and the children out there enjoying that day. Y'all come on up, Judge.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good to see y'all. We enjoyed having you and Steve out with us on Friday, and Jay, we even had a horse your size out there.
I knew you was going to try to keep me, so
yeah. We tried to do our part, but we thank each of you for helping us with our Reunification Day efforts. In fact, this is a little bit of a continuation of that, and I won't take just a second. I'm going to distribute you a copy of the letter here that the Chief Justice, you'll be getting a formalized copy of this pretty soon. This is the rough version that he sent out. Oh, this one. But as you well know, we were celebrating Reunification Day Friday, where we've had a number of families that have been reunited here in the last, particularly 9 months, but over the last 12 months. And as part of that, it's through the efforts of our representation program, our parent representation program, which Rankin County Board of Supervisors has graciously engaged with us in, through our parent rep program through Mission First, which is part of Mississippi College School of Law. And over the last year or so, just to give you a little bit of tidbits, Mississippi had 5,000 children in foster care as of March 31st, 2018, which represented a 17% decrease over the last 12 months. This is the first time a reduction in the number of children in foster care in Mississippi in over a decade. But here in Rankin County, since we inherited another court, and we also have been working diligently on with the Department of Child Protection Services, we had a 49.3% decrease during that same time period, and we're confident that the parent representation program helped play an important part of that. So the Supreme Court and the Parent Representation Task Force asked that I present to you this plaque today for the investment made by the Rankin County Board of Supervisors made to provide parent representation to indigent parents in Mississippi who find themselves in youth court due to allegations of abuse and or neglect of children. Given this the first day of June 2018, thank you for continued support of Mississippi's families. Signed by Chief Justice William L. Waller, Jr., Mississippi Supreme Court, Justice Don Beam of the Mississippi Supreme Court, John Hudson, Jurist in Residence, Mississippi Supreme Court, and by yours truly as Chairman of the Mississippi Council of Youth Court Judges. So on behalf of the state, I'd like to present this to the entire board, and if y'all don't mind, I'd like to see if we could get a picture of y'all so they could actually know that I gave it to you. Here, come on. Y'all look pretty good. I'm going to ask that some of the staff that's been working diligently with this, Annie Edwards, our youth court prosecutor, Julie Thompson, our abuse and neglect intake coordinator, and Paul, Bowen, our court administrator, and Trainer Phillips, our deputy court administrator, and Corey Gerber, our parent rep from Mission First Legal Aid.
hang on, Bob's
going to fix
yeah.
All right.
He's a planetary decorator.
Well, this may be the only award you ever get from me, so. well.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate y'all.
We sincerely appreciate
Thank you, sir.
all of your efforts.
Hang in there.
You got it. And I
On
just
behalf
want-
of the folks in Rankin County, we want to thank Judge, you and your staff for all the hard work y'all do and try to making the impact that y'all do.
Well, I just want to tell you that without the support of the Rankin County Chamber of Commerce, the community sponsors, the Pelahatchie Fire Department, the Sheriff's Department, all of those who participated Friday, but our local churches, Pelahatchie United Methodist, Shiloh Methodist, First Baptist of Pelahatchie, all of them, we had a wonderful turnout, and we had a lot of celebrations. So, and many thanks to each of you for the work that y'all contributed to allow us to do our jobs. And thanks to Laura. God bless Laura and Janice, because they need a prayer for the many times as we have to call over here and say, we have to change our budget because we got some other award. So God bless them. So thank y'all very much.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
As easy as they have it with us. I don't know why they need blessing from somebody else. This is easy over here.
All right, moving on in the public comments, Mr. Brandon Cobb with VDIC. Come on up, Brandon.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to report that Rankin County has no more mosquitoes. I'd like to report that, but then I'd be lying. Actually, we started out again in April, like we do every year, and I do a preliminary spray where I spray the entire county once over, so we can go ahead and kind of get ahead of them. The numbers in April and May were very low, and then starting in June as normal, they started coming up. They're still not incredibly high. We're spraying throughout the county as the population's numbers dictate, of course, calls and complaints and such, which we haven't had a whole lot of this year, at least not complaints. And so everything's been going real good, real steady, exactly where we come to expect it over the last 4 years. The first year we came in, they were real high in the traps and the larval surveillance. Over the last couple of years, we brought those down, and it's kind of seen a just repeatable, normal growth through June, July, and then start slowing back down about August and drop down, and that's what we're seeing again this year. Nothing unusual, no high concentrations. There are so far no human or tested samples of West Nile case in Rankin County. So right now, thank the Lord, we ain't got any problems. Do y'all have any questions for me?
Yeah, I would, just a request,
Yes, sir.
Swan Drive
Okay.
and the ball field right there on Luckney Road.
All right. Now with the ball field, you want us to just kind of spray through there every week? Is that what you're?
Yes, please.
Okay, that's not a problem. And I heard y'all talking earlier about the fireworks at the reservoir. I don't know if any of y'all have ever been, but there's a man who has a fireworks stand on North 43 right before you get to the harbor. Does a fireworks display every year for the Children's Hospital. We went out this weekend. I have never seen that many fireworks in my life. It was awesome. So letting people know about that next year, they'd really enjoy going out there and support him and what he does.
Thank you.
Mr. Steve, I can tell you I like that bow tie.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank y'all. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you, Brandon.
The mosquitoes were nothing at that fireworks show, and usually that was the battle, beating
Yes.
those, they, almost not any there.
Same way at Lakeshore Park, it was good.
Yeah, we have seen an increase in larval activity, but the adult activity has not really increased. In fact, it was lower than I expected in May, especially the early part of May. It's getting up to what's normal for May. It's like we're about a month behind on their population growth as far as adults. We have started seeing a lot more in larval, but we're treating that, so we're getting them before they become adults. So I'm glad to hear that it went well.
Yeah.
I know when we were out there Saturday night, instead of getting eat up, I think I got bit by one.
Yeah.
And we were off to the side so everybody had a place to sit and everything. We were off in the pasture. So getting bit by one in the pasture wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Good deal.
any other questions?
Thank you, Brandon.
Y'all enjoy y'all's 4th of July celebration.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Next up is Miss Leanne Klinger with Penn Credit. Miss Leanne?
Good morning, everybody, and I just want to take a moment and thank you for letting me have the opportunity to speak with y'all a few minutes, and Janice told me I got 5 minutes, so buckle up. Penn Credit has been in business for over 30 years, assisting county and city governments all over the United States in the collection of delinquent fines, fees, and accounts. We do all kinds of collections, utilities, EMS, as well as court debt. We are offering a very competitive rate to do that. And I'm going to touch really quickly on 3 of the things that I find most interesting about our company. Again, my name is Leanne Klinger, and I'm a national account executive. We have 3 things that we offer that I think are very important. One of them is a voice analytics program that we use. We actually record every single one of our phone calls. So if you ever had an issue or anything like that, we can always pull that recording. We turn them into text and keep them up to a year. This program also helps keep our people in compliance. I know you probably call somewhere and they said this call's being monitored for quality assurance. That's exactly what we do. It also has a live piece, so if a person, it picks up on voice inflection, it picks up certain words, it picks up legal threats. So if the system itself picks up one of those words, a supervisor can actually get on the call and de-escalate. So I find that very interesting. We also have a website where you can see all of your accounts and cases 24/7, not only just whether or not the status of the account, whether it's been paid or not paid, but also our notes. It also has tons of reporting capabilities, and all of our reports are in PDF as well as Excel. So if you only needed a portion of a report, you could copy and paste into another one. And you can also control a lot of your accounts that way. You can close or change information on them as needed. And of course, we have a Compliance 360 piece that's a web-based program, and that keeps us in compliance with all federal, state, and local laws. And we monitor that all the time. And you also have a person in our office that is designated just for your account that knows everything about what you would like to do. And I know we're going into budget season, and I'm here to help. Have any questions? Did I do that fast enough?
Do you work with anybody in this area?
Actually, we just won the RFP for the city of Brandon.
Brandon.
And we're,
All right. 2 of them. There's another one.
and city of Diamond Head. Has been with, I think I've been with them about 2 or 3 years now in their municipal court.
Questions? Anybody? Ms. Leanne, we appreciate you coming by and sharing that with us.
Okay, thank you, and I look forward to talking with y'all again soon. Have a happy 4th.
Thanks, ma'am.
Next up is Mr. Walter Redd, and I think he's representing this merry crew of folks on Lutney Road, and I see some other gentlemen here. So, Mr. Redd, and anybody else like to say anything, head this way, please, sir.
Thank you. My name is Walter Redd. Of course, most of you know me. And I have a reason for being here. Of course, you see, I have a lot of a concerned citizenry on Lutney Road. And we've been getting some conflicting information about, getting up a road, restructured, resurfaced, and overlaid, and all. But what we would like to know this morning from the supervisors, what are you willing to contribute financially to this city to help get this done? We've been dialoguing about this thing for about 2 or 3 years now, and we want to know what the supervisors are willing to do. That way, we'll know what direction to take. I mean, you might want to meet among yourselves and let us know later. And Mr. Gain, our supervisor, he will inform us, what the results are. But we would like to know, are you all willing to help the city financially?
I can address most of that. And we spoke with, I have with most of y'all. We are talking about the area where Rankin County property stops and the city picks up. The city limits goes out Luckney Road a good little bit, but it's right where y'all live. And I think 7 or 8 years ago, most of that area was the part that the city took in. And it's not in good shape. It rolls and it's a lot of traffic on it.
Right.
It needs some attention. And you and I have met, and Bob, with the city, I'm gonna say a year ago maybe. We as a group are sensitive, very sensitive, and because it's in the city, we need the city to take that first step out and have skin in the game. It's really the city's road, but the guys that I've talked to are all really positive about the county joining the city to get this fixed. There's some other little side things that we have to be careful, I do, and that is that we concentrate on the road and the ditches. I know there's been some talk about adding a bike trail and some stuff like that. I can't right now say that I would be for putting money in for a recreational type or bike trail or whatever when I've got roads that are still gravel and people such as you and me that are saying, what about my road? I'm on a gravel road. So I would say it would be limited to the road, to redo the road, but I think this group is behind you and going forward with the city. They've got to be the ones, it's their road, they've got to be the one that steps forward and says, we're ready to rework this road and present something to us that we can live with, a percentage or cost share, or, where we're in it together. I have not had any negative feeling from these guys about us doing that. And I also want to make it clear, because I didn't know this before I became a supervisor, our budget, when we collect our taxes, we give back to the city half of our road and bridge money that we take in from people in the city. Give it back to the city to help them do these type jobs. In Brandon, we do that. So we're already in there, but and I think these guys will back me, I'll join Butch Lee and the mayor, and the city, and the cost above that to fix that road where y'all live. I feel exactly, I go down that road 4 or 5 times a week. I know you go down it every day.
Right.
And it's becoming a thoroughfare from Flowood to Brandon.
It is. Definitely so.
I have a quick question. Buster, this is a state aid road too, is it not? How does that, if Brandon takes the lead, of course we have to do, whatever we do has to be done to state aid specifications. Is that just the overall essence to it?
Yes, sir. Whatever will be done, we need to be done according to the state aid regulations. And of course, we have an annual state aid inspection every year, and we ride and look at the roads and so forth. And then state aid advises us as to which roads, in their opinion, need to be addressed in the immediate future. That's kind of how that system works.
Yeah, but now, I believe I don't think I'm right. But we got a lot of state aid roads, but that don't, just like that one, that have not been brought up to the standard as far as shoulders and things like that. So they don't qualify really for some of the reconstruction money that you're referring to as far as state aid. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. A lot of times on roads like that, you can get overlay money.
Right.
Which there has been overlay money to go out on Luckney Road. But as far as construction, that's a little different situation.
Yeah.
If you were going to bring it up to all the state aid standards.
Because I do know there's a lot of them in the county that fall in the same, criteria as you're saying. When people think they're state aid, that means that money can be used there. But because they don't have certain certain things to meet the criteria, then you really can't use the money there. I believe it was part of 049 North Church
49,
between
right.
Florence and Richland.
Yes, sir.
Same thing. It's quote state aid, but you couldn't use the fund there because it doesn't have the shoulders and the things that they
That's
require.
correct.
So,
Drainage.
Well, if we can get it to that point, maybe the next go around, I mean, when it needs reworking again, it would be eligible to use that state aid.
Yes, sir.
And I think the only part that's not is actually in the city.
yeah.
I believe that's correct.
The
yes.
county back to Flowood, all has been maintained to where it is.
Mhm.
But I looked a little bit into that, and it looked to me like we need to get it to state aid, and then after that, which,
But there again, it's a city.
right,
The city.
Right.
We've been talking about it. So I mean, it's come up before, but the
Oh, yeah.
city has.
Yes.
I mean, it's kind of their. I guess they're the lead horse on it.
I can't say $1 because we don't know what it's gonna cost until they have a design and, pretty much the engineers can give them a good guess of what it costs. And then the city can say, this is what we can afford. I would try to do whatever we could to help the city complete the process though.
You got to have a design and all before you can get the right of way. So you don't know anything about the funding at all. There's no way to know about the funding until a lot of this stuff's done, and that is included in the funding as far as the design and right of way and that sort of thing. So it's really kind of hard for us to say we're willing to do this or we could do this because we don't know what it is, what's out there.
So what you're telling me that the mayor have to initiate this?
Yes, sir.
It's
It's in
a
his
city-
city.
it's a city
Yes,
road.
sir.
In other words, the ball in his court. So he's
Oh,
the
yeah,
one we
yes.
need to,
Yes, sir. It's definitely in the city. What you're talking about, it's all in the city, and it's kind of like his backyard, and he needs to invite us over if he wants us to play with
He
him.
wants to cook out.
Yeah, really. I mean, and I don't know his priorities, so I can't speak for him. But my priority is to get it fixed.
mine too.
I know it. I know.
Yeah, because we are definitely in the need for getting it fixed. I was telling a guy a while ago, I've bent 2 rims. I've been driving 65 years, and I've bent 2 rims here recently. One of my neighbors did the same thing, and it's just awful. There's so much traffic out there. The road really needs some attention.
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
we got. I know a couple of same situations, and I've, in fact, one of them is a city that I represent, and I've even said, y'all got to take the lead on it. I feel like the board would be willing to help at a certain point, but you got to do all the legwork and get everything done, and so it's the same situation, and it's a thoroughfare.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the answer is. The cities have put their priorities and their money where they see, and we don't have control of that. So
Okay.
thank you.
When you say we have to take the lead, are you talking about the city?
The city, right.
Okay.
That's what I tell the city.
We
I
are,
say,
well-
y'all need to take the lead. The ones I'm talking about, so y'all have to take the initiative and the lead, and you do this and this and this, and 'cause otherwise we couldn't. We don't know what it would cost or what even's out there, but the city's gonna have to have a lot of skin in the game.
Yeah.
That's the way
Well,
I
what
know it.
happened here, I'm holding a meeting on the 29th of January 2015, and he has some figures here. Somebody that it would take $4.5 million.
How many?
4.5.
Ooh.
And
They're talking about curb and guttering too, because of the width,
Oh.
to keep
Yeah.
it within the existing right of way. You put curb and gutter.
Do they
I
have-
believe is that what they were talking about, Mr.
Right,
Ray? I
right.
believe it's the
Yeah.
jails.
Right. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir.
We'll be heading to the city.
I know you didn't get all the answers that you need. I hope you got a good starting point, and you know where we stand.
Yeah. Okay.
Rest of you gentlemen who are here with
Thank you.
Mr. Reeves, y'all please stand so the board can see who is here representing the Lutney Road crew. Gentlemen, we appreciate y'all coming. And Mr. Reeves, I know Steve's gonna take the lead and maybe try to visit with the mayor to try to see if we can't spark something, in a direction to try to get this ball moving off center a little bit.
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all for coming. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Anybody else? I don't believe there's anybody else tied in for public comments. We'll move on in the agenda. Old business minutes of the 18th. So moved by Mr. Cross, second by Mr. Morrison. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Number 5, consent agenda. So moved by Mr. Cross, second by Mr. Morrison. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. Moving on. Mr. Sullivan, we'll let you come on up since you got more than one.
Item A, petition to change the assessment 2017 real and personal property assessment roll.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bishop, second by Mr. Gaines. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. B.
When we dealt with this is something that I've never seen before in my life. That the United States seized a piece of property and we had to go back and request to void the 2016-17 tax sale and refund the purchase for PIN number 69107.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Cross. Any discussion?
You said
Say that again?
I've never seen this, and
the United States, as in federal government?
Yeah, like a foreclosure.
So who owns it now?
As in the Department of Justice.
But they still have to pay
United States of
taxes.
America is the way that we titled the ownership.
Well,
Yeah.
who pays the taxes then?
Nobody.
They're gonna pay the taxes on it? I mean, how does that work?
They're gonna be exempt because in the United States.
Like everybody else, exempt, man.
Actually, I've already interacted with DOJ on this matter. They will, in fact, up through the date of the asset seizure order, they will pay any back taxes to us. So whatever we have to refund, say, in this example, we have a tax sale buyer who bought it at tax sale prior to the asset forfeiture. And so the tax sale buyer is holding title under a prospective tax deed. But he put money in, he paid money at the tax sale for the unpaid taxes plus an actual overage in that particular case. The federal government's gonna pay back to us at the time of the closing of the transaction. When they sell it on, they're gonna pay us back for what we reimburse the tax sale buyer. So we're gonna be made whole. We're not gonna lose anything.
How big a piece of property is it? Is it a building or land?
Come on, Mr. Sullivan, share with us.
It's a house.
Y'all more than welcome to come over and look at the parcel number when we leave here. We have it in the office. I don't know off the top of my head.
Oh, wow.
Is there a motion to approve? I think
already did
Mr.
it.
Morrison
I did.
made the motion,
I did.
second by Mr. Cross. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. C.
Request to
Sullivan.
approve the 2018 real and personal property assessment rolls and set up projections for August the 6th and set a public hearing for August the 16th.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Cross. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Harrison. Anybody want to beat him up here?
I make a motion to approve, road work accomplished June and road work scheduled.
Motion by Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Cross. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. B, please.
Request of approval utility permit for C Spire to construct a fiber optic service utility along and across U Ward Boulevard to install between Spillway Road and Avalon Way.
Yeah, I'll make that motion, but again, before we do it, we just put a lot of money into U Ward Boulevard. And
Yeah.
C-Spire's been running rapid. Had conversation with Mr. Hayes this morning on Mill Creek's AT&T issue. I'm fine with it. I just want to be careful that we just don't let it get out of control over there.
Yes.
So whatever discussion we need to have with C-Spire on that area that we're working in, let's have it.
And we're gonna be watching, we're trying to watch this, but they doing it everywhere. It's hard to keep up with them.
Yeah,
Where
it's
it
just,
goes, because they don't notify us. We just have to
right.
run across them.
But, I mean, maybe you need to mention to the crews up and down Hugh Ward Boulevard that if something's not getting, and we just put over $1 million in Hugh Ward Boulevard.
That's right.
So I don't want to get road like they get on us from time to time.
Yes, sir.
So I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Cross, second by Mr. Morrison. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Mr.
Thank you.
Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have two items on the agenda today. The first being Clover Valley Phase 2 amended, and I am recommending approval of that final plat where they made some minor adjustments between Phase 1 and Phase 2, but I'm recommending approval of that plat this morning.
I make a motion to approve it.
Motion approved by Mr. Gaines, second by Mr. Cross. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. B,
Oak Grove drainage improvements, recommending award of the contract to JWB Construction, Inc. in the amount of $1,495,285.05 and requesting authority for the president to sign the appropriate documents.
Motion to approve.
Second.
motion by Mr.
Finally.
Bishop, second by Mr. Morrison. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
I got a question though. JWB, who are they?
The low bidder.
I know that, but where are they from? I not heard.
Yeah,
Huh?
South Mississippi, Taylorsville, isn't it, a law? Yeah.
Okay, I just not
Yeah.
aware of them. I just curious.
Some of my guys have had a little bit of experience with them, and they had no
Okay.
problem.
Just curious.
JWB, I thought it was Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
Yes,
Mr. Slay, I think we can take A, B,
For that amount of
C,
money, I probably
D, E, F, can we not?
Yes, sir, I believe we can.
Is there a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Motion by Mr. Bishop, second by Mr. Morrison. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. G, please.
Item G is a public hearing on the Lindy Inc. conditional use permit at 118 Shirley Lane, District 4. We'll open that public hearing. Lindy Inc. is seeking a conditional use permit to add a new outbuilding to the existing CO2 gas plant at 118 Shirley Lane. The new building will be constructed from a converted standard shipping container. It will be used for long-term storage of paper documentation as well as an area for the control equipment server. This is a 12-acre parcel. It's zoned A1. That hearing is open. I'll ask if there is anyone here to speak in opposition to the Lindy Inc. conditional use permit request. Anyone to speak in opposition? Mr. President, I don't see anyone here to speak in opposition on that matter. At this time, we'll close the public hearing. It would be appropriate to take action.
I make a motion that we accept it.
Motion to approve by Mr. Gaines, second by Mr. Bishop. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Next item under the agenda, Mr. President, is a discussion item. It is for the purpose of the board to discuss large acreage subdivisions in agricultural zoning districts. We have Dave Wade and Gray Oots from CMPDD here with us today. We have been in discussions with CMPDD over the course of several weeks, if not months, about helping us to address development of property in large acreage tracts in the agricultural zones of the county. We find those most prevalently in districts 4, 1, and 3. Our other districts have a tighter density, a much more residential composition. I don't know, Daniel, do you have any A in yours? Way up in the far end? Far north end maybe.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Jay has any ag zone. It'd be an excellent, I think, if you had any in yours. And so this is going to address three of you guys primarily. And so what we're trying to do is take the approach. Here's the big takeaway from this. Under our current zoning context, we don't allow subdivision developments in any ag zone at all. And so anytime there is a development of property in the ag zone that takes on or appears to be in the nature of subdivisions, and by the way, under our development ordinance, that doesn't take much. Just divide your property, and you are in the act of creating a subdivision at that point under our regulations as we interpret them. And therefore, what we see is the requirement that even in very large acreage situations where there is very low density, where there is essentially no public infrastructure to speak of. Oftentimes, folks are required to either deal with the local water association to get a small line to feed their water needs, or they have to drill a well, that type of thing. Where the density is very low, where the public infrastructure is insignificant, I'll say. What we're finding, though, is that they have to go through a rezoning process. And so we're trying to address what we see as a demand that's in the market, which is for large tract acreage out of town, without having to trigger the subsequent requirement of a rezoning.
I'll remind y'all of that Shiloh Road session we had here about 2 months ago. You know, they were okay with the large acreage development. They just didn't want to go ahead and acquiesce and say, okay, because once you do zone it, those folks didn't have to come back in for, you know, they go ahead and develop it into 2 or 3 acre lots, which those roads were adamantly opposed to. But that's kind of what we're trying to keep happening.
Yes.
You know, so.
So here's the other part of the puzzle that's important to understand. That's the big picture. How can we allow what is a demand in the market that seems to us to make sense? It probably should be treated differently than what we would call a typical subdivision development. How can we address that without triggering the rezoning? That's the big takeaway. And then secondarily to that, it's how can we address the corresponding responsibility of a developer where there's going to be access issues, where there is a private versus public access road consideration that we need to take up. How do we address all of those? So we wanted to try to take the approach of addressing all of the potential issues on the front end as best we can, and get a handle on it so that everybody sort of knows what the rules of the game are going forward. This is important to keep in mind. There should be a distinction for development activity where acreage is being broken up and each of the individual resulting tracts have access on the public road. That's one consideration. So we see this pretty consistently. Somebody finds an 80-acre tract and they break it up in such a way that each individual lot that is created directly fronts on a public road. That's a totally different access consideration than one where an 80-acre tract is broken up and multiple lots that result do not have any access on the public road. Those are 2 different things to think about. So if a developer chooses to develop in such a way that each lot ends up with direct access on the public road, then the vast majority of our considerations, our concerns on our side of the ledger are already addressed. And so really it just comes down to how do we make sure that we have a limitation on the number of lots that result, and how do we make sure that we keep each individual lot at an appropriate size that fits within you guys come up with a definition of what the right lot size needs to be for rural development. Okay, so I think that's part of it, and then we spend a good bit of time addressing in this initial proposal. You guys have y'all have that? Yep. So you've got a breakdown of the high points here. We have a couple of different divisions here, and this is why I wanted to get into this. Large lot subdivision, as defined, is just what I explained. Each resulting lot has frontage on a public road. Skip legacy subdivision for right now. We'll come back to that in just a minute. And then the next section that you see there, private street subdivision, that is designed, this section then addresses situations where individual lots no longer have any frontage. They do not have any frontage on a public road. So how do we deal with that? Okay. So here's some talking points. This is just all of this is just off the top of our head, minimalist discussions with individual board members about the structure. You'll see initially we were thinking 10-acre lots, no more than 5. That was just a number that we came up with, double-digit size. a
10
requirement.
10 acre, no more than 5 total.
That's
Is that-
correct.
That doesn't trigger
No more than 5.
Does not
can-
trigger rezoning.
rezoning, okay?
Yep.
No more than 5 that can front county road or private road.
No, sir.
Just
Large
talking
lot
just
subdivision,
private.
Steve, that, all that addresses is a situation where each lot ends up with public road frontage.
Okay.
That's all we're talking about right there.
But
Okay.
that 5 is the 5 quantity.
Off the top of our head. That, and all we're talking about is how many of these lots does it take to trigger the developer to have to come in front of y'all and now reclassify that property as residential?
Okay, but I think he confused me. If you're fronting, excuse me, if you're fronting a public road, it's not gonna matter, is it?
Yeah,
It-
so what matters, Jared, is, does that start, you got them all strung up, let's just say, I'm just pick off the top of my head, Lake Road, Pelahatchie.
Yeah.
You got 1,000 acres. Somebody's got 1,000 acres, and they can line up 100 lots at 10 acres apiece. They can line up 100 of those scutters all the way down lake for 2 miles, however long.
Yeah.
The question then becomes, do we want to just not reclassify any of that property at all as residential, even though it's clearly now taken on a residential context, and it's clearly changing the community into a much more
Right.
residential you see the
Yeah,
point?
the problem I can see there, though, is if you know, a situation like that, obviously, is the impact you're gonna have on traffic safety.
Mhm.
That many entering that major road. You know, it's different if it was
Also,
3.
keep in mind, under your current ag zone, the minimum lot size is 1 acre. So if we don't have something to control the subdivision,
You have,
theoretically,
They
you
could have
could have
1,000
1
of
acre
them.
lots
1,000
rather than
acres.
10, so.
yeah,
So the idea was,
Yeah.
you know, right now we prohibit subdivisions in the ag zones entirely, but we want to have some mechanism possibly to allow large lot development. If we threw out the 10 acre as a minimum, but that could go up or.
I would say it should be on a graduating scale, 5 for 10 acre minimums. But if you had 20 acres, you might could go to 8 or more because you're spreading them out. And that would, I mean, someone that has 100 acres, we're okay up to 50 acres of that at 10 acres of whack. But if he wanted to split the other 50, he would maybe do it in bigger lots or something.
And so I would suggest, Steve, that we can allow that anyway.
Yeah,
We could do
yeah,
8
yeah.
at 20 if you guys are in agreement that it should be done,
Yeah.
but they would need to rezone. You follow that?
The-
This
let
is to
me-
give them a bypass. This is to help us on the front end. We can tell developers now on the front end, they got a 120 acre tract. If you're gonna develop your 120 and you're gonna give each lot road frontage, public road frontage, and you will do 5 lots, you don't have to worry about rezoning.
Yep.
If you're gonna do more than 5, you're gonna need to come and get it rezoned.
The heartache that the people that's currently out there now that live in the agriculture area, that they are experiencing is whenever some people move out from the city and they want to have a rural atmosphere, but they get there and they may not understand a crop duster is going to be flying over. And they like to take a nap at 2 o'clock when it's the best time to fly. Or there's tractors running up down the road, or combine, or things like that that go on in the ag. And then what the people that's living out there now says, don't rezone, keep it agriculture, because we don't want to hear that they live in a residential community and we've got to go through there to get to the other side of our farm. And they're wanting to have the sheriff or whoever come out and stop us. My thing is to try to keep it zoned agriculture, even if we have to go with a bigger lot than 10 acres. I would like, I mean, the east side of the county is probably nearly the last row crop ground left in Rankin County. And when it's gone, it's gone. And you won't ever be able to take your kids or grandkids out and show them what cotton looks like or or 8-foot stalk of corn. So I'm sensitive that we keep as much agriculture as we can and still allow some development where we all can get along.
But at the same time, you take that 10 acres and you gotta protect it from being split.
That's right.
To a
That's
3 acre.
exactly right.
I'm gonna
That's
get
exactly
3 acres
right.
off of that.
So the language has that in it, the requirement that there be restrictive covenants, and that the lots as originally classified under this ordinance cannot be further subdivided. Those, unless they come into compliance, and this is the
Come into
important part
compliance.
of
Yeah, go ahead.
they'll have to bring any sort of access roads up to minimum county standards and the whole 9 yards on that. They'll have to meet all of those normal requirements. This will apply to all of this that we're talking about here today. There's always going to be the option to bring it into compliance. Yes, sir.
From what I understand is all the heartburn comes from having to put in a road
Yeah.
up to county standards.
Yes.
And why can't we allow private property with a private road and not be up to our standards?
We
It's
do.
private.
We
So-
do. No, we don't. We don't allow a subdivision to be developed with private roads where the private roads do not meet our minimum standard.
Why?
Typically, we get caught at the back end of that deal.
That's right.
What you're talking about doing is jump out on the front end, which I know that's good to have a discussion. But what he also does is put the deed restrictions in place so that at least it goes on the public record that is a private road. And that helps deflect some of the abuse that we're going to get or future boards will come to get when they want to come up here and say, we're ready for you to take our road and make it public again.
And that is going to happen.
Well,
And
here's
that's gonna happen.
Sooner or
At some
later.
point,
But the
3 or
worst
4
part
years, they're
is,
gonna get tired
though,
of.
that we're now saying that you're gonna put in this private road up to our standards. And then they're gonna come over and turn it over to us and say, well, we built it to your standards, 20 years later. I would much rather say, no, you need to build the road up to our standards now and we'll take it. Because I don't see
I
where
do.
we have any responsibility whatsoever whenever somebody has a private road going out to their 120 acres.
I think that's right when it services them and their family, but when they start subdividing it and say you have 8 or 10 different homes living there and everybody agrees who's gonna do what, the first year, 2, 5 years later, half of them have sold and different people live there and we're not getting along as well. And I'm the only one left that takes care of the road and I just can't afford to. I've become disabled. And there's some there's some sympathy there, but is it the taxpayer's burden to go in there and spend $500,000 when whoever was developing it, if that would have been something that, and when you're looking at lots as high as those lots are selling for now, it'd be a very small percentage to do it right. And if they want the county to have it, I'd say the county either has it right up front, it's gonna be built to our standards, and the cost is gonna be bared by the buyer. I mean, the developer's gonna pass it along. Or, what we're looking at here, it'll never be county, it'll be deed restricted.
Well, then why does it need to be built to our standards then?
But we gotta assure that, initially, when we say you can build that house, that a fire truck can get back there or an ambulance, or.
That's not our call.
All right, and
It's a
okay,
private
that's-
drive.
It will be whenever somebody
ahead.
dies in a fire.
Go ahead and
back
use
there.
your 5-year-old example, Craig. I know you're dying to throw the 5-year-old in there.
Yeah. Well, we say that all the time. The adults in that situation have the freedom to choose to ignore the potential safety risks that are there for a road that's not up to any sort of standard and cannot handle a fire truck.
But that's
traffic.
anything though.
I agree with that. But the 5-year-old in the family, especially a later buyer of property out there, doesn't get a choice. They don't get a vote in that deal. And Mama's expecting the fire truck to show up.
Well, there's only so much though that we're responsible for.
If we have a certain minimum on these, say a gravel road, that is this width, and anyhow, even though it's private, And whenever we approve this, it's deed restricted or covenants that the maintenance will be on them, similar to a homeowners association. At least we started them off with a road that they could access it with a fire truck or whatever.
Yeah, so it's, the way we've tried to address what I'll call rogue development, which essentially is just folks not really understanding the rules and not being aware of the requirements. You'll have multiple lots that get developed off. Several of them do not have access to the public road at all. They're accessing a public road via an easement that is generally undersized. We see them all the time, 30-foot easement, that type of thing. They're undersized, they're underdeveloped. And so how we have addressed that generally is on the backside. It's already done. And so we're dealing with how do we fix what is a bad situation. We've addressed that by my introducing restrictive covenants that are executed by all property owners that are there, that we're dealing with. Typically, it's the developer still holding a few lots. We caught it in time before all the lots get sold, plus the folks that have bought. And we don't see any issues, no pushback. They understand why we're requiring the things that we require. And the restrictive covenants generally say everything in there that's an access way is private, and it will remain private. It's subject to private maintenance. It will not be taken over for public maintenance. It cannot be used as a school bus turnaround. They got to make their own deal with waste management with respect to trash pickup, all that other kind of stuff. We try to address everything that we can think of so that we don't get backdoored for county maintenance. And we make it clear, and it goes in the property records, that it is private and will be privately maintained. And that way, our hope is that later, they can't say that they were unaware. They could say it, and they may even be right, but it's in the land records that it's private. And so if there is a request for maintenance that's made, you can point to that and say, it must first be brought up to county standards before we will accept a maintenance responsibility. That's how we've been handling it. So to Jay's point, why do we make them construct it to county standards on the front end if we're going to keep it a private drive and we're going to put the maintenance responsibility on them anyway? And that is a question that I have asked, and it is a difficult conundrum to explain to people. We're going to force you to maintain it all the time, and we're going to make you build it on the front end to our standards. It doesn't fit together. It's a hard explanation. I'm just being transparent with you. It's a hard explanation for me to have to make to these folks. I know why, because we want to be able to run a fire truck down it. But they see it, honestly, as an overreach. It is overburdening us with regulation. It's not necessary. If you're going to tell us on the front end that it's private and we're going to accept that, then don't tell me on the back end that I've got to build it to county standards anyway. And generally, at some point in the discussion, the question's raised, rightly, well, why don't we just turn it over to the county then? If you're going to make me build it to standards anyway, I'll just turn it over to the county.
That's
Which
good.
is exactly what I would do if I was a developer.
Well, I had in my mind a different standard, not your normal blacktop road and
Ms. Parker, you
those
better
standards.
catch this.
I'm
Listen to
looking
this.
at Mr. Parker to see what he has to say about that.
Yeah. Go ahead, listen to this.
All right,
Thank you, Jessica, we appreciate that.
Well, Dave, y'all probably have a lot of research, and they're handling this in other states that are more populated than us.
Yeah, we're talking about two things. One, the roads, obviously
Yep.
a big issue.
Yep.
But the other thing is, are we gonna allow the subdivision of land in ag zones? And if so, to what extent, what lot size, what minimum can we do? And do you want to put minimum on number of lots as well? That's the big questions right here.
Maximum on the number of lots.
Yes, sorry, maximum.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the big issues we need to resolve is, are we gonna allow the subdivision of the land to
Well,
begin with?
if we decide not to, then we won't have to worry about the road.
But basically what y'all have here is we're allowing it to be subdivided if it can meet these three requirements, be on a public road, more than 10 acres or minimum 10 acres and not more than 5 lots.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that and you're not worried about the roads then.
So then, this really doesn't address
that's
like
easy.
what Jared keeps bringing up, the guy who has 150 acres and he wants to sell off 25 of it, down in the middle of it, back on the back 40, you know?
But it doesn't, he
So
got.
this doesn't address that.
Well, it does under private street subdivision.
Yeah, we have a section to address that. Yeah.
Okay,
Again, keep in your
100
mind-
acres, he wants to take 50 of it and sell it in two 25-acre blocks. But he has to build, right now, there's no access to it. He'd have to build a mile of road to get to it. All right, then what do? Then the thing that I would be concerned about down the road is that 25 acres then would be divided into whatever, 3 or 4 more lots. That's the same 25. That guy's going, you know what, I can sell this, and they're always going to sell it to their brother or sister, their family, and then brother and sister move off and sell it to so and so, and then so I mean, how do we? That's the one, but it's not fair to him to have to say you got to build a road to county standard to get back here.
Right, and that's why we put the prohibition that it cannot be re-subdivided. Once you allow it, if it meets whatever standards y'all decide on, whatever size, then there's a prohibition against subdividing it further.
All right, well, let's take the subdivision out of it. Start with your issue is he's got to put the road in all the way through his property to get back there. That's what he's saying. The issue is that the landowner who's selling the 50 acres or 100 acres, whatever, is not making any money or enough money to be able to pay offset cost for road.
I mean, and do you stop it at 25? What if he says, oh, okay, now I'm going to sell these in four 12.5 acre blocks. I mean, how do you get? So then all of a sudden you have 4 homes there accessing. Do you just say, okay, fine, y'all got to deal with the road? I mean, I don't know where we draw the line, and I hate it. It is putting a lot of I guess control in it, that because what's happening, a lot of this old land that's been there forever, these people have passed on and their family doesn't want to keep it, so they've sold it to so and so, and then it goes, there it goes. It's happening so in our districts because of that.
So what we're trying to do is to get us out of the riddle that we find ourselves in now, which is by not having any regulation of any kind to address this. We're left to fall back on the ordinances that we do have, one of which is the development ordinance, which is triggered the first time it's subdivided. Okay? So we've got a development issue. So you've got 911 addressing correctly, asking questions. Are there multiple, before I issue this address for this piece of property, which means the next step is they're going up to get a construction permit, before I do that, should there be questions asked about what is being developed in this area since it is starting to appear as if it's a subdivision and it's already zoned A1? That's a problem. Renee has to address it from a zoning context at that point. It's a potential zoning violation. So we address it with the property owner on the front end as best we can. You're going to if you're going to divide this property up, you're going to have to deal with a rezoning issue, and then next you need to deal with our engineers and with our addressing and with our zoning to determine whether or not there are some additional regulations with respect to subdivision development now, primarily access issues. And so we're left to simply address them on a case-by-case basis, and maybe that works, but the problem is that we don't always catch them. So what we find is that we may not know what's going on until we are 5, 6, 8 lots deep into something.
Right.
Then that's a problem.
That is happening.
It's a major problem. You got already, you've got investment that's already been put in. You've got arrangement. You've got a real estate lawyer community that has no clue about any of this. They don't know what to look for or how to help address any of this stuff. They're completely mystified by it. and many of them are philosophically opposed to any of this.
Or have any responsibility
Correct.
over any of it.
Yeah. Well, the whole notion of restriction on alienation of property rights, that's the way they'll couch it, but what it really means is you're cutting into my closing business. So we've got to figure out a method that helps us on the front end to be able to say to the development community, if you will meet these parameters here that are acceptable to us in terms of development in the rural areas, you don't have to worry about zoning issues. Renee doesn't have to worry about zoning issues. 911 doesn't have to worry about zoning issues. We have something we can look at and point to and say, okay, you're going to take that 50-acre piece and you're going to divide it up 5 times in 10-acre minimum, and they all have road frontage. You're good. Nobody calls me. Nobody calls Buster. Renee says they're good. Issues permits, they go. They want to take a 60-acre tract and they want to break it up into 8 pieces, each of which would be somewhere around 9.5 acres. We got an issue. Doesn't meet the 10-lot minimum. We can do the math. Don't have to back up and see what may have to come into play here. You may have to acquire some additional acreage and break it up to meet the minimums. We can deal with those kinds of things if y'all will give us the boundaries, give me the fences.
Well, yeah, but that 60 acres, you're going, what if he backed up and just said, I just increased the lot size?
That's exactly what he would do. He would say, I'm going to do 7 instead of 8, and we're okay. We're fine. They need to know what the rules are so that they can modify their behavior.
Is 10 acres, is that?
We sure don't want to, like one gentleman, I think it's Mr. Harry Gibson, come up here one time, was wanting to put in, these little skinny driveways all the way back to 20 acres back here, and he had about 7 of them.
Yeah.
And he said, well, they all front the public road,
Yeah.
and all of it was about the width of a driveway.
We have addressed that in the ordinance currently to require a 60% of the required width of the lot be on the frontage.
Okay.
And that's also why we put the 150 feet of frontage. So it's not just, you got 15 feet for a driveway, you gotta have 150 feet.
Yeah.
On those in particular.
Yeah.
So if we wanna work on that as well, and then adding restrictions in the private street development as well on number and size.
We got to do both of these because not every piece of property is going to have maximum public road frontage. It may come to a point out at the public road and they want to develop that. Well, they're going to have to fall under the private street subdivision section because there's no way they could break that property up and meet the requirements for a large lot subdivision.
Now, what are you going to call this zoning anyway? Well, I know you won't have to zone it if it meets the first one, but what were you thinking about?
It wouldn't require rezoning.
It would not, if it's less, 5 or less, it wouldn't have to be rezoned.
Right, I
It would
get
just
that.
part of the regulation of zoning, like right now, in R1, major or minor subdivisions are allowed, but excluded in A1 and A2. So what we would be doing is adding this as an allowed development within A1 or A2 would be the large lots or the private streets.
But doesn't that take away from us not allowing subdivision in agriculture?
It's
Yeah, I mean-
yes, but it's controlling the subdivision that is already occurring there. Even though they're not allowed, it still happens every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, both those things can't be true. We're going to take one out, right? I mean,
Well, we're not, you may remember, last year we added some definitions, major and minor subdivisions and some other things, which we exclude the ag zones. So we're trying to prevent, like I say, right now the minimum lot size in ag is 1 acre. We don't want somebody to go in and put 10 1-acre lots in.
No.
But if it's
And it
5
would.
10-acre lots, you may not have an issue. So we're just trying to find the threshold. Where is it?
It's happening.
You know, where are you changing the character of that rural area? I think as long as the lots are large enough, you're not necessarily changing the character.
Arguably.
And to answer Steve, earlier, this proposed regulation, this came out of, I think, is it Madison County, Georgia? Morgan County, where they see a lot, it's east of Atlanta, where they're seeing a lot of development pressure in a lot of rural areas, and they have a lot less land to deal with than we do, so but that's how they addressed it, so.
Food to think about, right?
Give us some feedback. We need some help.
I think we're headed in the right direction. I want a pretty good private drive. I don't want it to be like most of them where their property lines meet in the middle of the road and there's nothing for utilities, things like that we see that happened 15 years, 20 years ago. And if we had, we do have a little bit of leverage going into it and I'm not asking them to build an asphalt road. I'm still, gravel, it's only gonna serve 5 or less, but it needs to be certain width with ditches and some.
I think, to me, that's the key. You look at all your private roads out there, they hadn't been properly ditched.
Right.
And it's an old pig trail, they just keep building on it, and when the big rains come, it washes it out. The private roads.
Yep.
It gets on the proper drainage of the front end, you got a road that'll hang with you a while.
But the people that are purchasing it, most of them probably don't really know what they're getting into.
They really don't. They think they can handle it.
Yeah, until most of them really don't. And the developer, but that's their choice.
Yep.
We dealt with the one we're talking about, what is it, Ball Road?
Yep.
They all met in here.
Yep.
They're working on it now, but they weren't told that when they bought it. So
I think with the covenants or deed restrictions going in, we'll be a little bit ahead of them. We won't be where they were.
That's right. It helps. It definitely helps the situation.
You can't say down the road, I didn't know. If they look at their deed, they'll know.
Yep.
Even if they're the second or third person that bought it.
Well, what if we take out the word county standards and say you must have a minimum width of this and it's maintained well enough to get emergency vehicles down?
I think the minimum width, you're right, but it's gotta be, we need to have some standard. I don't know what that would be, because I got one also, it's wide as you want it, because it just went right down to a pasture. They got like 4 dwellings down there now.
So-
They say, how come you can't fix our road?
Jake, practically what we see is something like this. Man, we have put load after load after load of gravel. You cannot imagine how much we have spent on this.
Right.
We go out and have it cored because there's a possibility that this board may be asked to take it, so we have it cored, and what we find is 4 inches in
2
spots.
places. Yeah.
Spots, no gravel at all. So the reality that we don't have any standard leaves us with no way to enforce us not taking at some point something that's got 4 inches of clay
Well,
gravel.
we're not going, the way you're setting it up, we're not going to be taking it,
Well,
but.
I would say we could, if they bring it up to the county road standard, not private
Yeah,
road standard.
right, but they could have we still need a private road standard.
And by the way, you can say that regardless of what's in this ordinance.
Yeah.
Or what's in the restrictive covenants.
I mean-
You have complete discretion to take or not take. So that's always going to be in your favor, or in a board's favor in that respect. One of the things we want to try to do is to make sure that on the front end, the folks that would otherwise have no idea at least be provided with some sort of mechanism of notice before they buy property.
So like that Butler property, they got that problem there, they thought they could do a little bit and we could take it over. And that's a good example. Those people have no idea. They're the innocent victims.
Do me a favor, Mr. Slade, bring it all to a head here. Tell me what reading you're getting from the board. Hey, Jay, he's going to get Craig to tell us what direction he thinks the board is telling him to go in. Y'all tell him, yeah, that's about where we want to go, and we'll have some discussion maybe for the next meeting, or no, you've missed the big picture here, we want to go a different direction.
Well, if they have any more.
Well, they do, I'm sure they will.
Let y'all have anything to
I
say.
have one more question that we hadn't talked about, and I know y'all are y'all got the answer. What do we do to put some type of restriction to where we don't take away from, like in agriculture, you can have 1 acre and you can put a trailer on it. This is saying you're gonna have, to not change the zoning, you're gonna have to have 10 acres, but it doesn't say what is gonna be allowed on that 10 acres. Are we gonna?
Yeah.
Cause see, you could,
We're not doing, yeah, I know where you're headed, not going there.
does that?
Yeah, I mean, you're right, manufactured housing is still allowed in the ag zone.
Yeah, it's allowed
We didn't get
outright.
into that.
Well, we got, that's why we're having this discussion.
There's, I mean, I'm thinking if you're gonna buy 10 acres, you're gonna have a pretty significant amount of money involved, and you probably would want, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't happen. And I'm not
Nothing stops them today.
saying on any one individual, but I'd hate for this just to be shotgun out there, and this is how you handle, if you wanna live in a mobile home in an area that has no other mobile homes.
Well, it is too.
Wouldn't that change
It
the
is,
zoning?
but
Wouldn't
That's the
that?
second one. It's
Yeah, and that's the way it is right now.
I know.
That's
Yeah, but
exactly
after
Well,
the second
no,
one though, the
after the
second one, isn't that
second-
right?
Yeah,
After the second one, we say, no, you gotta rezone it.
Isn't that right?
that's right.
Isn't it fixed like, after the second mobile home, it's the same land. After the second one, you have to
After
stop
it's
it.
subdivided.
All right,
Wait a minute, wait a minute.
let me pull back, let's pull
Hold
back
up,
here just a
wait.
second.
She's answering me. What?
Said only one is allowed per parcel, so you can only have one on an acre. If they had another acre, they could come put one there.
But they had 10 acres.
Well, if
But,
they-
see, that's what we're talking about.
But if they were subdividing, the subregs are triggered, if they were gonna go out and create lots. So we should catch it that way.
The problem
Like
is when you do
subdivide.
that is that they go out and subdivide it until somebody actually comes get the building permit or a 911, you have no clue. We just don't have the manpower to oversee that kind of subdividing effort. By that time,
Right.
they've got 4 parcels out there out of that 10-acre tract or whatever that thing is, and everybody now wants their 1-acre kingdom, and go with it. But I don't know how you do that. But let's go back to where I was a moment ago, Mr. Slay. Give us your read on what the board and what direction the board is heading, and maybe that help Alex and Dave to kind of help focus more on something else. Maybe I don't know.
So, the number one issue that your staff is facing is subdividing activity in the rural area, especially in the ag zones, where there's no attempt to approach it from a rezoning context. We just find out about it after the fact. We are not as troubled where the subdividing activity provides that each lot ends up with public road frontage. That's just not a big troubling issue with us, and we don't see that as significantly impacting public safety or anything like that. And so we think that a good piece of this development activity can be addressed by simply saying, if you are breaking your property up into not more than 5 lots, and each lot ends up with public road frontage, there's not a need to rezone. That's one thing that we would hope to accomplish out of this.
Okay.
So each lot has public road frontage, and you're not doing more than 5 lots.
Okay,
And
but what? wait a
each lot
minute,
has
though.
the adequate amount of.
That's all good. What if the guy over here, is a couple in your area, really affected? Steve, you got a house, $500,000 house, a couple of them here, and you're gonna split this up, and it's agriculture, all of a sudden they're gonna move, manufactured homes in right there across the road.
Yes, sir, that's possible. That's absolutely possible, which is currently what can happen.
I know.
And is happening.
I know.
And so we're not trying to address a change in the character in the ag that would prohibit that.
Those
We're
guys with
not.
$500,000 home are gonna throw a fit.
Well, understood,
It's
but
happening one time. I mean, legally, they can take an acre, 2 acres, and put a mobile home. If they come to get the second one, that should trigger to where we go, whoa, you gotta rezone. So it's a rezoning issue to bring it out of agriculture. This would not have to be rezoned.
correct if it was, again, kept to this minimum number of lots, which is what we have wanted to sort of focus on.
Yeah,
So
but that would be-
each lot has a size, and then there's a minimum number of them before you trigger a requirement to rezone, okay? So that's,
Yeah, well, what you're saying, you could put 5 10-acre lots, put 5 manufactured homes right across the road from, that's not gonna be a good
I
idea.
mean, they can do it now. That's the whole point
Yes.
about it. They can do it now.
Yes.
We don't have any kind of deed restrictions in ag. We talked about doing house size minimums in our residential zone, and we didn't want to do that. But ag is ag. I mean, they
Yes.
get that right. And
Yeah.
whoever buys into ag understands
That's-
it's buyer beware.
that's the
It's
point.
not our job.
I think that's the point. The guy that builds a $500,000 house in ag,
Confused. I thought if it's ag, they can take acre, 2 acres, whatever health department says, and put a trailer. Maybe it's somebody that works for them. But when they want the second one, then we should catch it and have to
Good.
look at zoning. Is that?
that's
so
what we're
it's not-
currently doing now.
If it's happening now, it's outside our zoning regulations because we should catch it and have to rezone it or either not let it happen.
And any activity, even if you were to adopt this, and again, we're just focusing on road frontage lots right now, but if you were to adopt this and there is any subdividing activity of less than 10-acre minimums, it's going to have to trigger the rezoning after that second subdividing activity.
But, you know, truthfully, just because we say this.
Yeah.
We're not making any difference, because they can still go out there and subdivide that 5 acre or 10 acres, you know. So by us doing this is not really addressing the issue.
Well, it's giving us.
Well, I know it's giving them the law to be able to put this without having to do a subdivision, and I get that. But as far as the real problem, it's not addressing it.
Addressing the road frontage thing, I mean, it's the way it stands kind of now anyway. I don't know if we're addressing it right.
I don't think we're getting to a definitive place to go. So my suggestion might be, Mr. Slade, in your spare time, just go back and look at the videotape on this meeting and see if you can come up with something for the next meeting to kind of say, this is kind of where I think we're headed. And if Dave and Alex need to come back, can. If not, they can provide their input via email to your comments.
Yes.
And then we can kind of see maybe if we can kind of get a little bit further down next, because I think we keep going around in a circle here, or a rectangle, or whatever.
Well, I like the road frontage deal. I'm not so sure of that one. The deal where the land way back in the back, they're really not in the same discussion piece. The road frontage one and the property that's sold half mile off the road. Those are totally two different situations. Where you gotta, or so far enough you gotta build a /private county whatever road into it. Those are two separate things. It and this selling these lots right on the road. But I don't see how they're even in the same discussion. They're different.
Well, they both are happening in the ag zone.
Right.
And so this was an attempt to avoid the rezoning issue primarily.
Well, the 10-acre lots right down the road almost, I mean, we did the same thing in, on Florence Byram, and he had to have that zone, and that wasn't a problem, and I don't see that being a problem. You got, he sold 3-acre lots, and they joined the road. I don't know how many acres it was, but I mean, I don't know. I don't see a problem with
So we've had
rezoning
some
that.
developers experience problems with requests for rezoning.
Yeah.
And that was an example where the resulting lots were going to be very large, 20-acre plus. And there still was resistance to it. So we felt like giving a developer an option that didn't
I know
require a
what
lot
you're
of
talking
public
about,
spectacle, where there was not going to be a significant change in character at all in the community. Giving them an option would be helpful to everybody, but you guys may want to relift the cap on that.
But if they hadn't rezoned this the way it was, correct me, couldn't they have done 4 of those nice houses that got built there and that vacant lot is inside? The guy put a manufactured home right there?
Well, he's got covenants in place, Jared.
No, well, he does, but I
protect
mean, the
that.
way we're doing it now, It wouldn't
Yeah,
matter?
That would be on the developer to protect against that, not on the county,
Okay.
because it would comply with our zoning.
Oh.
They can always protect themselves with covenants. They can say there's going to be this particular type of construction, this minimum square feet, and knowing on the front end that that is the preference in a particular district would be helpful, because at the time that Renee's aware, there's talk about this potential development, suggesting while we will not require rezoning for this, you're going to need to talk to the supervisor about what your plan is. That's going to always happen.
I want y'all to soak this up and give us some input later. Y'all been over real quiet.
All right, I think that's a good idea.
Well, while we're talking about this too, I want to put this on the record as well. We're continuing to see issues with large land holders who are not county residents, who are incentivized to divide their property without any regard whatsoever to anything going on with the county or the residents. No real concern at all about what the aftermath of this will be. They're simply trying to dispossess property. And so I want us to be mindful about that we're trying to watch that as best we can. We know who the primary offenders are, and we have our eyeballs peeled for that kind of activity, and we're watching it. But we really want to try to stay on top of that. And so I'd love for this board and others to communicate with our real estate community, the agents, the brokers, with the attorneys that do loan closings, to be aware that when they see several pieces of property being divided out of larger tracts, that there is the potential to create some mischief there that we need to be aware of.
That, what you said came late to me, but I probably have more of it than anybody else, and that's large land holders that do not live in the community, that do not maybe even live in Mississippi. And what you were saying, that the developers can protect the community by putting, these people, they're in business to make a dollar.
That's right.
And that could disrupt a community, a fine community like Shiloh or somewhere like that, that's a really wholesome neighborhood, could be changed. And it's everything we've talked about, none of that would apply to them. So, they could say, why not?
Okay. We'll keep working on it.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Slade.
Okay.
Dave,
Yeah.
Gray. I think I mispronounced. I said, well, I won't go there. We're just gonna keep moving on.
You did.
I did. I realize that now, but we're gonna move on. I think you got some folks in the back there, Mr. Slade. While we have your executive, okay. Mr. Oster's getting ready to get started. Mr. Gaines, I'm gonna let you go ahead and take A and B, because I'm in conflict on B, so I'm gonna leave the room.
First item I have is on our new courthouse facility, and it's approval of pay application number 12 to Chris Albritton Construction in the amount of $136,313.65, and authority to issue that check.
Make the motion, we do it.
Second.
I think you got it. I don't know. Is there any discussion? No. All for it?
Aye.
Any against? No. All right, let's go to B.
Next item is authority to pay David Morrow Jr. for the Family Master Services for July 1/18 through December 31st of 18, and authority to issue that check each month in the amount of $2,500.
So moved.
All right.
I'm gonna have to abstain from it.
Oh, well, okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
I gotta
All right,
abstain.
second.
No other
Any other discussion? All for it?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll
Any
abstain
against?
for the record.
Daniel?
I've got it.
All right.
Next
Now-
item is acceptance of the FY18 HIDA subgrantee cooperative agreement and authority for the sheriff to execute those documents.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by who?
Daniel.
Daniel, second by Mr. Gaines. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Next
Please,
item
ma'am.
Authority to execute the special condition 1373 as prior approved FY17 for the OJP program for youth court.
Motion? Motion by Mr. Gaines, second by Mr. Cross. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. And last,
This is on our new misdemeanor facility, and it's approval of pay application number 5 to Flagstar Construction Company in the amount of $80,632.20 and authority to issue that
So
check.
moved.
motion Mr. Morris, second by Mr. Cross. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Anything else, Ms. Oster?
Not under my section. We do have some under additional business.
All right, we'll move on to additional business then.
First item, I believe Mike's going to come up and talk about some box culverts, 2 of them, for Andrew Chapel.
You got 120 seconds, Mr. Mike. Starts now.
Want to do the approval of the box culvert on Andrew Chapels. We have 2 box culverts, it's a bridge and a culvert that need to be changed out. And I want to get your approval for Buster and them to go ahead and advertise and consider bids on it.
Is there a motion to add this to the agenda?
Hang on, do you have anything else to add?
Motion by Mr. Gaines to add this to the agenda, second by Mr. Cross. Any
I gotta add
discussion?
it, I gotta add it to the agenda first.
We just did.
We just
Okay.
did.
Just did,
This
okay.
is this is added to the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion to approve by Mr. Gaines, second by Mr. Cross. Any discussion?
I'm just curious what, was something we replacing or we just build a new one or what?
We're gonna put new ones in.
I mean, there's some there.
It's a bridge there, and then it's a culvert there, and it's gonna be a box culvert there.
Oh,
We
okay.
fixing,
Yeah,
we fixing either have to spend money on the road or replace this,
I got it.
replace this
We're
right
gonna have
here.
to shut the road down.
Yeah,
Or it's
I
got-
just done got
Yeah,
that
that's the first
back.
I'd heard about it.
So,
Just curious.
I'm assuming that this is gonna
It's
be
bad.
part of what we're about to reconstruct,
It is a phase of it.
so.
It
it's-
would come out of that, Steve, like, that would come out of the big project we're working on, and by doing these box culverts, and those things will be done when we go with the large project.
Yeah.
So when they go doing the road work, we'll have to be 3 or 4 months doing
I
the
got you.
box culvert.
All right.
Any more discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. You did well, Mr. Harrison. You did it under 120 seconds.
All right.
What else?
He has one more addition.
All right.
Well, that's what I was trying to
Does he get
do,
another
add
120
everything.
seconds? You get your another 100. This is
I get another
on
You get a
120
fresh
seconds.
120. What you got?
Approval of,
Jeff Martin.
yeah, trucks going to a Jeff Martin auction. They seem to gave us a better buyback on the trucks, the dump trucks.
You have
So,
anything else you
That's
wanna
the
add?
18th, isn't it? Isn't that the 18th?
This
Back
is
up,
last
start over.
item?
I'm gonna stop the clock. Back up, start over again. Who did what?
We got 2 bids from Dinko, one from Jeff Martin.
Jeff
Yeah,
Martin.
Jeff Martin,
And Dinko.
and one from Dinko. Jeff Martin had the better buyback
Okay.
from auction.
Is that?
Or don't-
Make a
or-
motion to add
The
this item.
18th, he's not going in on the July 18th, that sale?
I think theirs is in August. Martin's is, 1st August.
He's got one for the 18th, but it may
Dinko,
not be that
Dinko's
one, it
got
may
one,
be
Dinko's got one on the 18th.
Is there a motion to add this to the agenda?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Cross, second by Mr. Bishop. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Motion to approve by Mr. Cross, second by Mr. Bishop. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Anything else?
I need about another, this may take 120 seconds.
All right.
I just asked you had another item.
I told you yes.
You said no.
I said yes. I was going yes. I have looked at some information. They have come to y'all before and talked to it. I've looked at some brochures of some stuff that has been done in some other counties. Was with Civil Link on our paving prevention plan. Looked at it through Southern CMPD, and I have talked to them. We can do a study on this, have it done by December the 15th or Christmas right there. Everything looks good, what I've seen. I think it'll help us get down the road a lot further and make the decision of paving the right roads and putting the right application on the roads.
This is going through who?
Be
Civil
going
Link,
through
they
Civil
came in and
Link.
talked to us one time before.
That group out of Memphis or South Haven?
Yeah.
Really? What have they done to impress me?
They've done Harrison County, Hancock County,
Well,
they've been doing a lot
Their
of.
cost about half.
Uh-huh.
They've also cut their cost.
Okay,
They
right.
cut their costs way down too.
That does.
But it won't all affect in this budget year, it'll be some in next budget year. And I do have that cost if you wanna know it.
I just kinda, I just didn't think the
Well,
board was that
I'd like
impressed
to
when
know.
we were here this year.
It'll be 165 to do the whole county.
The what?
It'll be 165
I
to do
thought
the
that's
whole
what it
county.
was last time.
That's it.
No.
250.
Yeah, and almost
250.
300.
250 or something like that.
Not being that much last
I don't
time.
remember being that much either. I thought it was about 150 as well.
I did too.
I thought that was still too high. I thought the 150 was too high. But hey, I'm happy. Are you here for an action or just to enlighten us?
I'd like to be here for an action on that, Mr. Bob, but if y'all
That's
wanna
coming-
think, if
that's
y'all wanna
coming
think
next-
about it, that's fine.
I don't know.
Uh,
I don't, you know, I don't.
I'd like to have a more discussion before the 16th. Maybe we could take action one way or another on the 16th. Let us discuss that. I'll have it now
I'll
if
be
y'all
ready
want to.
when I've met with those people. So I have probably a little bit more background on what they can do and what the benefits are for the county. So I mean, let's wait and talk. Y'all take your own time and talk with them and pin them down, ask them questions and see what you think it'll do to enhance our ability to maintain these roads without spending maybe too much money on one, or sometimes we'll have to spend a little bit more, but we won't be fixing it again in 2 years. I mean, it's just a whole variety of, I mean, the menu is a lot
Menu's very
bigger,
broad.
A lot
I mean,
bigger.
it gives you, it's very broad. It gives you a lot of options to do. Kinda explains to your constituents why you would do something.
They ride and videotape the roads.
Yeah.
And then they come back with an assessment of where they think that road is within a certain period of
Well,
time.
they give you a dollar figure on that road.
Sir?
They'll give you a dollar figure on that road. of
Far
what they-
in a timeline when
Yeah,
something needs
yeah.
to be incurred before you, sometimes we allow a road to go too far.
Right,
If we'd have
right.
done on the front end,
Yeah.
to hit it in this time slot as opposed to this slot, we could have done a chip seal and not had to
We may-
do a lot
They
of.
may take
might seal
they
it
may
this
take
year.
an overlaid road and chip seal it to save it, to get you 4 or 5 more roads, 4 or 5 more years down the road. They, what I seen in the study was, I mean, they even gave it to you all the way down to the gravel roads, that you need to add X amount of gravel to these roads to keep them maintained and to get them up to different standards.
And it has a prescription, not just for this year.
Why?
Do this year,
Yeah.
but in 3 years, you'll need this. And in 10 years, what have you spent on this road? And you can see the savings if you follow the
And
prescription.
it'll give you a number that affiliates with this road or cost. And that cost will be able to tell you a total cost of all your roads, what it'll take to fix them. You know, I mean, that's what'll be in the deal. It'll say it'll either take 50 million or whatever to fix these roads. And you decide whether you wanna fix them in 5 years, put $10 million in it, or you wanna spread it out and do it in 20 years, you know.
And I mean, it's not really good at all for the old beat system, but for us, I think it will work a lot better. But anyhow, I think we should.
It's not something you have to put in stone that this is exactly the way it's gonna go, because some roads have more impact than others, and
No,
they
but
don't.
You can
they
adjust,
always
you can adjust the
gauge that.
road,
But it
you can
gives you a
adjust
guide
the
to start
road.
with.
Yeah, they can't always tell you which one's gonna have more impact,
It's-
but they don't.
So
do it.
since the last time they were here, they've taken on more clients out
Yeah.
there than,
Oh, yeah.
who else have they picked up besides?
They
All
pretty
those
well-
on the coast.
Pretty well everything down on that coast end.
And the feedback you're getting from those road managers down there or county engineers, if they're
Yes,
getting
and I have-
more something back?
And I have talked to Leonard Vance with,
See,
Southern.
that's MPD.
He's with Southern, where ours is
East.
Central, and Southern fell in line with this, and
The
They've been doing
CMPD
it.
down there is really behind it, thinks that it takes a lot of guesswork out and some of the politics out.
If y'all feel, it seems like you're talking, if I trust y'all's judgment on this thing, if y'all want
I
to
think
do
it's
all that,
I think it's a good tool to use. You know, it gives us a good guideline to go on. You know, that way we're not doing roads we shouldn't be doing, and should be fixing roads that we are, you know.
What's the cost all right, we spend this up front. What comes up down next year, in the 3 years?
There's no next year. I mean, till you finish
It's a
this
one-time
complete
thing.
list, I mean, it's a complete, you know.
I would
I
assume
would
at
say
some
it's
point they had to
about-
come back, what, probably
Well, I
3
mean,
year
you would probably wanna come back
That was what I understood.
You would-
You about a 3-year, 4-year time, they'll come back and read.
at some point, you know, I would say 4 to 5, that you would bring them back and redo this.
Well, let's,
know.
But
look
this
at
thing's
this.
gonna give you that 10-year
How-
plan. The way
How long would it take 1 or 2 employees to just drive every mile the county roads and do the documentation? I mean, you think of that, you're looking at a year. And we would have 2 employees, our county salaries, plus their insurance and their retirement and the automobiles are driving. We'd eat that amount of money up trying to do it ourselves.
Have we already done some of this with, you and
We've done some
Engineer.
ourselves, you know, but it's time consuming, Jared.
Yeah, I know. I just wondered.
I mean, you get started on it and you have to pull off to go do other things. Me and Tim has worked hard at doing this, but, I mean, we got a lot of other things going too. And
I think it's a good thing all the way around. I really do, because it's going to put us on a plan and a schedule, and it's going to really give a true assessment to where we can go back and say.
What do you
hey,
think, Mr. Bishop?
I personally, I'm not crazy about it, but this tool Mike said he needs, so I'm going to support whatever he wants.
There's your 3 votes right there. So we'll go ahead and here entertain a motion, put this on the agenda. Is there a motion?
So move.
So moved by Mr. Cross, second by Mr. Bishop. Any discussion? Any all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Cross, second by Mr. Bishop. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. There you go, Mr. C. You never know, it doesn't hurt to ask. You never
I
know.
told you to take a few more seconds, but, thank y'all for y'all's time and patience with this.
You betcha.
Yes, sir.
All right, Ms. Oster, anything else for additional business?
We do,
Yeah.
I have one. This will be 120 seconds.
Time, I am watching the clock.
I have been talking with Mr. Word for a year, probably, about a alert weather siren in Pelahatchie. There's nothing on south or east for Pelahatchie, and they've located a place that would, I mean, Lance and them, that would cover the most amount of ground. Those people have been after me for 3 years. They had been promised to have one for a lot longer than that. But we thought we could take one that was used or had been used somewhere else and put it, and it didn't work out. Mr. Word got a bid that he'd give us maybe a month ago. It's $33,000 to have it and install it. I don't know how to say we fund it or we approve it or whatever. I just got to bring it to the table because these people deserve an answer, I guess. And we've got all the parts together, but is it something that we need to wait and put in the budget, Miss Laura? Because I mean, we're getting close to the budget. Is that little bit of 30, or is that, or can we do something?
I have a question before we get to the budget side. That comes to Mr. Word. How is the county-wide? I mean, obviously we have a dark area in Pelahatchie. Is the rest of the county covered fairly well as far as weather signs?
You're about to run into some issues up in the northeastern part of the county. That's just, I don't know what the explosion of growth is up there, but that's, right now it's all farmland, but it's continuing to grow. Could you put more sirens out? Absolutely you could.
There's just a big I say
You got
big.
one in
It's a-
southwest down there that they've been down around the Hickory Ridge area. That was supposed to have been in the one way back, but when they shifted it around, that's a big pocket there where some of these new houses have gone. And that's one they've asked about. When will that one come to? You're probably familiar with what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
Are you talking?
The issue that with,
let me just say, the Pelahatchie area is highly populated. I mean, it's not.
I mean densely, yeah.
Well, densely populated. It's populated, and it has been that I mean, from 43 80 to Scott County has been.
Is there any other, I mean, there are spots out there that, I don't want to
Yeah.
go ahead and vote to do this Peleahatchee, and I get a phone call from down in Puckett going, well, why hadn't you done that for us?
And that's what's gonna happen right there at Southwest one I'm
And
talking about.
again, also, I think they're important, I'm with you, but the audible sirens outside, where, you wanna try to
Exactly.
explain some of that to them?
Back 40 years ago, outdoor early warning sirens, which that's exactly what we have. We have 47 of them, and they are truly that. Outdoor early warning sirens. Every single month that we do a test, we absolutely get thrashed on our social media accounts because somebody couldn't hear it, they couldn't do this. When we have an event, they couldn't hear it, it didn't wake me up in my bedroom, and they're not even designed to do that.
Right.
They are designed to alert you. If you are outdoors and the siren goes off and you are within the radius that it is effective, which is very small, that is to alert you to go inside of your home. It is not designed to wake you up and shake you out of the bed at 2 o'clock in the morning when a tornado comes.
But that's
Our
what
recommendation-
a lot of people think.
Our recommendation
I got an email
is,
thread from somebody down in the south part of the county.
our recommendation is for everyone to get a weather radio. That is the absolute fastest, most effective way to get early warnings.
Look, I get a
But
call. I get a
you-
call.
you
I got
can't
a guy
always
that
do that.
monitors it the first of the month. He sends me a message every first of every month at noon that it either went off, he heard it, didn't go off. He was in his bathroom, didn't hear it this time. Every single month, somebody tracks him, but he can't understand the reasoning
Tell 'em go
behind
outside,
it.
I filled a phone call just last month from a lady in Pearl that wanted to know why was it that consistently the weather siren is 4 minutes late. Well, come to find out, it's not our siren. It belongs to the city of Pearl that they just put in behind
Jay said
behind
delay
Patrick
before
Farms.
that, so there.
That's their issue. That has nothing to do with us.
But it's those calls are constant. I mean,
So, Mike,
So-
I know that this
Now,
is
I
nothing
understand
new.
you're probably not going to do a Pearl River County, which Pearl River County went out. They pulled every siren they had up out of the ground, done with those.
I do agree though with Steve that in that area, we do need an
Right,
external.
and it does. I'm gonna tell you, it does give people a peace of mind when they can hear.
Oh,
it.
yeah.
It really does.
That,
Sorry,
in the
Mr. Bishop.
past, there's been some grants available. Or do they still do that?
Just went to a meeting at MEMA. This has probably been about 8 weeks ago on a management grant, and that was my first question. Can I buy outdoor warning sirens with this particular grant? They said historically, yes, you can, but they have pulled it out of this particular grant. Come to find out, the only thing that I could do was buy screens for our building. Go figure. Without doing a environmental study, getting Mr. Buster to do an environmental study. That I know this is crazy, and I had to ask the question, and I guess I looked ignorant when I asked the question, but it really didn't bother me. If we disturbed 1 square inch of ground, 1 square inch in depth or width, if we exceeded 1 square inch, we had to have an environmental study.
To put one in?
To anything.
Oh, my Lord.
Anything. And they waited so long on it, we only had 4 weeks to have everything turned in. And there was no way I was going to come to the board and ask you guys to go spend $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 to do an environmental study
think Mr.
on a
Buster's
chance
got
that we might get $20,000 to help us do
Buster's
something.
not
It was